Bill Walton, the father of Luke Walton, the man who led the Portland Trail Blazers to the 1977 NBA championship. A Hall of Famer, the guy who was also a former MVP, the former first overall pick of the 1974 draft. And then he would win 6th Man of the Year and another championship later in his career. Bill Walton was a very decorated player, and pretty much every NBA fan has heard of him before. But did you know that he was only a 2-time All-Star, and that he only appeared in the playoffs for 4 different years? Walton only played 468 regular season games in his entire NBA career, which is honestly even more impressive because he accomplished so much in such a short period of time. The injuries utterly destroyed his career, but he was so good when he was healthy that many fans believe he's arguably a top 10 center of all time, despite his short prime. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today let's talk about Bill Walton. From 1971 to 1974, Walton would attend UCLA. There, he would make a name for himself, leading UCLA to the NCAA championship twice, and being named the National College Player of the Year 3 separate times. Walton was a star, a well-known household name in the basketball world, even before he entered the NBA. Even off the court, he became recognized for his political activism, sometimes to the dismay of the people around him, as they believed he was drawing too much attention to issues outside of basketball. When recalling a situation with his coach, Walton said, "One of the saddest days for Coach Wooden was the day he came down and had to bail me out of jail after I got arrested in the anti-Vietnam War protests. He said, 'Bill, I know you feel very strongly about this, but I just don't think that you getting arrested and taking part in this demonstration is what it's all about.'" Walton was just that kind of guy, and in his old ESPN biography, it described him as, quote, "usually shy, but also ferocious and outspoken." He would carry this demeanor with him everywhere he went, and that leadership and vocality would translate onto the NBA court. However, over his years in college, the one big problem he had was being injury-prone. His injuries started to pile up really quickly. In his senior season, he suffered a major back injury in a game in a hard fall, as he broke 2 bones in his spine. In fact, this wasn't the first time he suffered a major injury. Even back in high school, he had a broken ankle, a broken leg, he broke several bones in his feet, and he got knee surgery, which resulted in a long-lasting tendinitis that plagued him for years. Basically, it was a combination of bad luck, and his ridiculously fragile body certainly did not help. Anyway, in his last year at UCLA, he was forced to play with a back brace for that entire season. But that did not stop him from continuing to dominate the college competition. By the end of his UCLA run, he finished with averages of over 20 points, over 15 rebounds, and 5 assists per game on 65% shooting. Fast forward to the 1974 NBA draft, and the Blazers would select him with the first overall pick. Despite his history of injuries, it was a no-brainer. Walton was the consensus #1 pick for a long time. Everyone was just waiting for him to finish college. The rest of this draft class, though, was pretty unspectacular outside of a couple of names. That was usually the case in the 1970s, as it was one of the weaker eras in NBA history. For Walton, he would immediately pick up right where he left off, displaying all the skills he showed in college. The court vision, the post-up game, his craftiness around the basket, his relentless offensive rebounding, his hard-nosed defense. Walton was as complete of a center as you'd ever see. He wasn't the type of guy who could just drop 30 points on your head every single night like Shaq, but Walton still dominated the paint in his own way. He was one of the first big men who showed the value of passing out of the block or out of the high post. He truly revolutionized the position. There was nothing he could not do, well, except for staying healthy. During his first 2 years in Portland, Walton had a sprained ankle, he broke his left wrist on 2 separate occasions, he dislocated 2 toes and 2 fingers, and he also got into a Jeep accident and hurt his entire leg. There was also a lot of uneasiness surrounding him as people described him as being super cocky, despite missing 78 games in his first 2 seasons thus far. In an article from NBA.com about Walton's life, it stated, Walton's combative relationship with the press further sullied his image. He spoke only to reporters he knew would present him favorably, while shunning the others, who were mostly Portland locals. Later, he admitted much of his aloofness or unwillingness to talk was due to a speech impediment, which he would later receive successful therapy for. However, his 3rd season in the NBA was absolutely spectacular. For the first time in a while, Walton would be injury-free, and he would lead the Blazers to 49 wins with averages of over 18 points, 14 rebounds, 3 blocks, and nearly 4 assists. He would lead the league in both rebounds per game and blocks per game. But more surprisingly, in a stunning playoff run, the Blazers would make it all the way to the finals and capture their first ever NBA championship. It was a complete shock that the Blazers won the title this year. In the previous 2 years, they didn't even make the playoffs. In fact, this was Walton's first ever playoff run and he led them to the championship. That's freaking incredible. In the following season, the Blazers would win 58 games, but this time they would get bounced early, as Walton would get injured again and then sat out for most of the playoffs. But that did not stop him from winning his first ever MVP. Unfortunately, these 2 seasons were the only years of his career when he was a legit superstar. In this time, he captured 2 All-Star selections, 2 All-NBA selections, a championship, an MVP, and a Finals MVP. In the later part of 1978, Walton broke his foot. This time, it was very, very serious. It was an injury that he could never recover from, and it forced him to sit out nearly 4 whole seasons. He would not play at all in the 1978-79 season, partly because Walton believed the Blazers' medical staff was treating him and other injured players very poorly. And he actually demanded a trade, which the team obliged as they had very little hope he could actually recover back to form. In the 1979 offseason, he would sign with the San Diego Clippers on a 7-year, $7 million contract. However, he made a very little impact on the Clippers, because he basically sat out until 1983, and when he came back, he was nowhere near as good as before. This period of his career in San Diego was very upsetting for Walton himself. While the rest of the organization and the fans were excited about his return, Walton felt ashamed that he took so long to recover. Nobody was more upset at him than himself, and he felt that he let the entire city down. Keep in mind, San Diego was his hometown. He was born and raised in La Mesa, a few miles away from downtown San Diego. While talking about his inability to recover, Walton said, "When you fail in your hometown, that's as bad as it gets, and I love my hometown. I wish we had NBA basketball here and we don't because of me. It's my greatest failure as a professional in my entire life. I could not get the job done in my hometown. It's a stain and stigma on my soul that is indelible. I'll never be able to wash that off, and I carry it with me forever." By 1985, Walton would join the Boston Celtics. While his career was coming to an end, he would have one last great moment. Now, this Celtics team was widely regarded to be arguably their greatest team they've ever had, with these guys in their prime like Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and other guys like Dennis Johnson, Robert Parrish. However, then there was Bill Walton, now coming off the bench as a 6th man, far removed from his days of glory. He was barely able to even join this team as the doctors examined him, looked at his knees and foot, and said there was no way he could play. But with the help of team president Red Auerbach, he gave him a pass and let him play. This was the big break Walton wanted, just the opportunity to show the world that he still has it. And that's what he did. He would win the 6th Man of the Year, becoming the first player in history to win both the MVP and the 6th Man of the Year award in separate seasons. As of now, the only other player who has done that is James Harden over 30 years later. Anyway, despite the horrendous injuries throughout his NBA career and throughout his entire life, Walton still managed to finish his career on a high note. I mean, he did get injured again afterwards, but hey, the last memory of him was a champion. He will always be a huge what if. What if he wasn't so injury prone and played a full career? Would he be in the same conversation as guys like Shaq or Hakeem or Kareem or Wilt? Who knows? By the time he retired, he was recognized as the best passing center of all time. His versatility as a 7-footer was unprecedented in an era where people thought you needed your center to score a lot of points to have an impact. Walton did not need to score, but still dominated on both ends. Anyway, that's all folks. Let me know your thoughts on Bill Walton. Where would you rank him among the all-time centers? Maybe top 10? Maybe outside of it? It's kinda hard considering he has a lot of accolades but no longevity. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.